Hello everybody, it is week 7 and this week we are talking about ekphrasis. I'm so excited to share this form of writing with each of you. But before we get started, I want to teach you something that I teach to all my students at some point in the semester, which is pausing before you begin your work. Before you sit down to study, before you listen to this video, take a moment to pause, take a breath, and set some intentions. If you need help with these intentions, you can fill in the blanks below. Go ahead and pause the video, fill in the blanks, and then join me again. Okay, now that they are filled in, I hope this was helpful to create some good energy toward listening to this video and maybe the work that you'll be doing after that. Echrastic, in the adjective form, echrastic, is defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary as a literary description of or commentary on a visual work of art. So it is this reaction in writing to any kind of visual art. It could be a painting, it could be a sculpture, anything that you're seeing that is art. Okay, so in our class, we're going to work on poetic ekphrasis, where we write and read poems that are written in response to visual art. Okay, let me just say a few more words before we move on. When I was in graduate school, I had the opportunity to take a class in ekphrastic poetry, so it was a whole semester long focus on this. If this is something that's interesting to you, there are lots of ways to encourage yourself to continue to write more ekphrastic poetry. During the semester, we would visit, this is in Chicago, we would visit lots of different museums, and even at CCP, sometimes I take students to the art museum to walk around, be inspired, and write poetry or creative writing in response to what they see at the museum. There are tons of sculpture parks around the city. There are murals probably in your neighborhood. So take a look around you for art that's there for the writing, right? There's so much around us. There might be even artwork in your own home that you can look at, or artwork you've created that you could then write about. Okay, so ways to approach ekphrasis. So one thing to do is write about what you literally see or experience when you look at it. So you can describe it, you can talk about what you're seeing there, the shapes, the lines, the literal figures maybe that you see in the art. Another way to approach it is to write about ideas sparked by the art. So maybe the art is really abstract and it made you think about your grandmother's cooking. Whatever, wherever you go when you see a piece of art is a legitimate path. So you can also do it that way. You can also write about the art in the context of yourself. So maybe it's like a feeling that it comes up, maybe it's a journey. Maybe you imagine you're one of the people or a tree in a particular painting or sculpture or ceramic, whatever. Or it could be a combination of all of these things. These are just some ideas for how to get started with it in case you're like, okay, I see the art, now what do I do? Here are some ways to get you started. So even more guide below, you can begin with a description. What is there? Start describing. Sometimes in the act of describing something, it's easy for us poets and creative types to then dig down below the surface pretty quickly, right? We're describing and then all of a sudden here's a metaphor, or this reminds me of this, and the ideas start to take shape. Another idea is to just free write and allow whatever arises to be on the page. No matter, maybe it seemingly has nothing to do with the art, but then in the end you realize, I see the connection here. Let me give you an example. So first, let me show you this image. This is the image I'm working with. So the first thing I'm going to do is describe it. So I wrote down teal mason jars, fence, broken pieces of wood, flowering tree, A-frame building, Okay, just going back, sunshine off the mason jars. So you want to just pay attention to the details. You might mention the blurring in the background. There's lots of things to notice here. The colors, the green, the yellow, the brown. Then another way to, so that's one way to kind of get started. Another way is to just free write. So I free wrote looking at this image, and this is the poem that I came up with. I buffer my sharp edges with mason jars. Await those pillowed words, that air thick with goose feathers. I'm not exactly sure how I got to this from that, but I started with the poem and I'm sorry, the image, and I was imagining that that the fence is almost me, like this is me, and I have these sharp edges that I'm sort of protecting others from myself, or maybe protecting myself from others, I'm not sure which, with these mason jars. If I were to continue to write this, I probably would write about how these can shatter. It might not be the best protective, like maybe I protect myself with mason jars when I should be protecting myself with something else. Anyways, this is sort of what came up in my free writing, and I sort of went on this tangent with it, went into those pillows, then I went into the goose feathers, and I just let it lead me wherever it would. So there's a few images here if you want to practice. There's this one, and these are also in you can download the PowerPoint for this week, the actual PowerPoint document, and you can see these images there. So I have a few that we could write about. And like I said, for this one, it could be very literal. You could write what you see, what is happening here. You could also go inside maybe one of the characters' heads. You could go inside the head of the laundry or the ocean. You could just write about the feeling that this provokes and what it reminds you of. And here's another one. This is a photograph by Michael Hoover, taken in New York on the High Line. So you might want to write about this person. You might want to write about the wall. You might want to write about the color orange. Lots of options to be inspired. Okay, so that's it for this particular slideshow. Feel free to download the document so you can look at the images and practice some more. And also feel free to find your own images to write from. Have a wonderful week.